She had come back to pick up her car. Everything should have been done. Papers signed, the deal closed. Until she asked a question that on the surface seemed simple. Why wasn't this fee on the contract yesterday? Just 10 words, but they sliced straight through the salesman's polished front like a scalpel. His smile vanished. His voice turned cold, like metal pressed to skin. You already signed, so shut up and take the car. What he didn't know, what he should have feared, was that someone had been watching, someone who should never have been lied to, someone who could see through the sales tactics, down to the rot beneath. One contract, a login at 9:30 p.m., a truth buried deep, waiting for the right spark to set it on fire. Because this wasn't just about a car, it was about dignity, about the subtle, sharp betrayal of walking into a system you don't understand and being treated like you don't belong. She wasn't the first. Behind every contract, every fee, was a dream compromised, a voice dismissed because it didn't speak the system's language. Jackson Reeves didn't show up like an owner. No security detail, no gleaming Mercedes, no hints of authority trailing him. He parked a black 2010 Honda Civic 2 blocks away and walked the rest of the way through Tennessee morning mist, quietly, intentionally. Every step measured, every glance purposeful. The sign for Reeves Auto Group shimmered faintly through the haze, bold white letters stretched across glass, a name he once wore like armor. But now, behind that glass, something didn't sit right. Something felt wrong in its bones. He didn't enter through the front. Instead, he slipped around the side, through the hallway where the service center met the break room, a place where real work used to begin with purpose, not get avoided with excuses. The soft chime above the door barely stirred the air. No one looked up. The reception desk stood empty. A couple of salespeople lingered near the water cooler, deep in idle chatter. 2 desks sat unmanned. It wasn't even 9:45 IUM yet. This used to be one of his cleanest, most reliable branches. But now it felt loose, untethered, not broken by a single scandal, but fraying at the edges with a kind of quiet negligence. Jackson hadn't come to investigate one bad deal. He came to see if the culture itself had changed. As he passed a line of gently used Camrys, the kind this location moved quickly, he saw her. A young woman, faded blue hoodie, clutching a thick manila folder to her chest, a baby carrier at her feet, the child inside wrapped in a yellow blanket, fast asleep. She wasn't talking to anyone. Just waiting silently beside a closed glass door labeled Finance and Vehicle Delivery. There was something in her stillness that caught Jackson, something he recognized. Then it clicked. Rachel Monroe. She used to work for him, not here, but 2 states away at the Memphis regional office. An accountant, sharp, quiet, principled. She once flagged inconsistencies in a fleet sale invoice. She had been right, and yet, a month later, she was gone. No HR complaint, no formal resignation. She had simply vanished. And now she was back, not as an insider, but a customer, holding a folder far too thick for a normal vehicle delivery. Jackson instinctively ducked behind a row of promotional banners near the customer lounge. He wasn't ready for her to see him, not yet. She had no idea he was here. And the salesman, walking toward her, confident, sleek, flashing a practiced smile, had no idea who he was about to try and sell to. Jackson tilted his head just enough to catch the words. "Miss Monroe, it's great to see you again," the salesman said, voice slick as butter left out overnight. Smooth, overly polished, almost rehearsed. "We've got nearly all your paperwork wrapped up. Just one last little detail to go over." His name tag read, Chad Morrison. Rachel followed Chad down a narrow hallway, her steps silent but steady. He walked with the confidence of someone who thought the deal was already his. They entered a small, glass-walled room nestled inside the finance section. The air was overly cold, stiff with air conditioning, and the sterile scent of printer ink, too artificial, too detached. Chad took his seat across from her, sliding a freshly printed sheet across the table like a waiter laying down a prefix fixe menu. This version just includes a few delivery items we bundle post-signing. Totally normal, he said, already tapping the page like it was routine. I'll walk you through them. Outside, Jackson held his breath. He was crouched behind a spinning rack of roadside assistance brochures, half hidden, his eyes fixed on the scene. He couldn't see Rachel's eyes, but he saw the way her fingers tightened around the folder in her lap. Subtle, but deliberate. Tension was rising. "Wait a second," Rachel said, her voice soft but laced with caution. "This wasn't on the document I signed yesterday." Chad didn't flinch. Not even a pause. "Oh yeah, that's just because corporate updated the delivery process this quarter. Totally routine compliance stuff. Happens all the time. Price is the same, it's just itemized differently now." He leaned forward, his smile syrupy and practiced. "You're still getting the same car, same deal. This is just paperwork." Jackson's stomach twisted. He had helped rewrite that paperwork policy himself 2 years earlier, to eliminate manipulative add-ons just like this. Any post-signature fees were supposed to be run through a secondary approval system, complete with timestamp, reason code, and a mandatory client sign-off. It was designed to protect buyers. Yet the document Chad just laid out included 3 glaring violations: $495.00 for an electronics protection plan, $275.00 for interior sterilization, and $395.00 for VIN etching, a service that had been banned across the company after an audit revealed several dealerships were charging for it without doing the work. Jackson himself had shut that program down. He studied the sheet. The layout was off. Fonts didn't match. Section headings deviated from corporate templates. But to someone under pressure, it would pass. Barely. Rachel leaned forward, scanning it carefully. "Why is the electronics protection plan marked as required?" she asked. Chad smiled again, that same fake plastic grin. "Technically, it's not required, but it's bundled into the financing offer to lock in the lower interest rate. Helps with credit scoring optimization." That was a lie. A smooth, professional-grade lie. Jackson knew it. And from Rachel's subtle shift in posture, she did too. Her eyes flicked toward the exit, not with fear but calculation. The baby stirred softly in the carrier at her feet, as if sensing the shift in the room's pressure. But Rachel didn't move. Chad kept talking, his words sliding out like they'd been used 1,000 times before. "I know, it's a lot of paperwork. I see this every day. Most folks just want the keys at this point." Rachel blinked slowly. "Do I need to sign again?" "Just one more acknowledgement," Chad said, pulling a pen from his shirt pocket. "Totally standard. You already agreed to the terms. This just covers the final prep." Jackson felt every nerve in his body fire at once. He wanted to walk in, right then, confront him, shut it all down. But he didn't. Not yet. He needed to see how far Chad was willing to take it, how far the rot had spread. He moved quietly around the back of the customer lounge, inching closer to the finance room's side panel, close enough now to hear every word. Chad leaned forward, his voice lowering to a mock confidential whisper. "I get it. This can all feel overwhelming, but believe me, I'm here to help. This deal, it's solid. Don't let these little details mess with your head. You already signed once. You're basically good to go." Rachel paused. Just a beat. Then, with a steady voice and no hesitation, she asked, "Can I take this home to review before I sign again?" That was the moment. Chad didn't flinch, but the shift in his tone was immediate. unmistakable. He tapped the paper again, this time with a sharper edge. The car is being detailed as we speak. The delivery certificate's already queued for printing. If you walk out now, we'll have to restart your file from scratch. From behind the tinted edge of the glass, Jackson could see every nuance on Rachel's face. The flicker of hesitation, the split second of weighing options. It was like a tightrope had appeared beneath her. One side led to compromise, the other to chaos. And then, like ice cracking beneath silence, he heard Chad's voice dip. Flat, sharp, and final. You already signed, so shut up and take the car. Jackson didn't move. His hand rested lightly on the edge of the brochure stand, eyes locked on the glass-walled room. He didn't rush in. Not yet. He let the moment sit. Let the weight of those words settle into the air like a storm front. The room didn't fall silent. It constricted, like a violin string pulled too tight, vibrating on the edge of breaking. Rachel didn't flinch. She didn't shrink, but her grip on the folder tightened, no longer out of fear, but resolve. Her silence wasn't submission. It was strategy. Chad, realizing too late the line he'd crossed, rushed to repackage his tone in professionalism. It's all there, he said, just itemized under new corporate compliance. Totally normal. Jackson knew better. Worse. So did Chad. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't an accident. This was theater. Practiced misdirection. Sleight of hand refined by repetition. Rachel tilted her head slightly, eyes scanning the sheet again. And the VIN etching? She asked. I don't remember that being on the original quote. Chad nodded like it was no big deal. Every vehicle goes through the same pre-delivery protocol. We etch the VINs for theft deterrence. It's already been done. That was a lie. VIN etching had been discontinued across the company in 2021 after an internal audit uncovered widespread abuse. Dealerships were charging for a service that wasn't being performed. Jackson had personally written the memo that ended the practice. And yet, here it was. A phantom fee, invisible in real life but perfectly alive on paper. Jackson stepped back. Quietly, methodically, he circled behind the service corridor, not just to breathe, but to think clearly. Every breath now felt heavier, more revealing. He passed through the showroom. The receptionist was back, but thumbing through her phone. Two salespeople near the vending machines laughed at something on a screen. A man in khakis strolled by with a coffee, didn't make eye contact. This wasn't about Chad anymore. It was the entire rhythm of the place, unbothered, unsupervised, unchecked. Jackson drifted into the pre-owned aisle, stopping just behind a black RAV4. From there he had a direct line of sight to the finance office. Chad was still talking. Rachel was still listening, but barely. Her expression had hardened, not from confrontation, but containment. Jackson knew that look. Budget numbers, risk assessments, emotional thresholds. That calculus people do when they're at the edge. She had the look of someone who'd already been knocked down once and couldn't afford another hit. That's when Jackson understood. Chad wasn't just hustling for a commission. He was counting on her silence, counting on fatigue, counting on the fact that women like Rachel, single moms, first-time buyers, were too exhausted to fight, too burdened to push back. Jackson clenched his jaw, not in anger but in certainty. He'd seen enough. He walked slowly toward the finance room, not rushing, not grandstanding, but every footstep carried weight. When Chad circled the final line with his pen and said, "Let's go ahead and finalize this," the door never got the chance to close. Jackson stepped inside. His entrance wasn't loud, but it was seismic. "The delivery fee," he said, voice calm, even. "That's not in the original agreement." Chad froze. Rachel looked up, her eyes widened slightly. Chad tried to recover. "I'm sorry, but..." "VIN etching," Electronics protection, Jackson continued. None of those are in the approved package list. Show me, show her. Where does it say this dealership is authorized to charge those? Chad hesitated. His eyes darted to the computer screen, then the hallway, then back to Jackson. Look, I don't know who you are, but you will, Jackson said, his tone steady as stone. Now explain it, right here, in front of her. Chad stood straighter, posturing like it might restore control. I've been here 4 years. I know these packages like the back of my hand. Jackson didn't blink. Then show me, right now. Jackson didn't answer. He simply pointed at the printed quote in Chad's hands. Then show me, he said, calm but unrelenting. Right here, where does it say VIN etching is authorized? Chad hesitated. It's in the system, he said, voice cracking just slightly. Finance will go over it in more detail when we finalize the paperwork. No, Jackson said flatly. You explain it right now, right here. Rachel stood, her hand curling around the handle of the baby carrier. She said nothing, but in that moment her silence had weight. It had presence. Chad's cheeks flushed. I don't have to do this, he muttered. I don't even know who you... He didn't finish, because behind Jackson, in the hallway, another man stepped into view. Dark blazer, pressed slacks, dealership badge still clipped to his collar. Tom Whitaker, general manager of the Charlotte branch, and the second he saw who was standing inside the glass-walled office, he froze, like the air had been punched from his lungs. Barely breathed, barely audible. Chad spun around, eyes wide. Wait. But Jackson didn't turn. Didn't respond. Didn't smile or introduce himself. He just looked at Rachel. And his voice when he spoke was low, steady, and apologetic. I'm sorry, he said. This isn't how we treat people. Not here. Not under my name. Rachel's brow furrowed slightly, trying to process what had just shifted in the room. One moment she had been alone in a quiet war. The next, the room felt different, honest. Jackson turned to Tom. I need a conference room, he said, cool as steel. Tom, pale and visibly sweating now, nodded and motioned toward the end of the hall. Chad didn't move. His clipboard dangled loosely from his fingers like a useless prop. His posture collapsed. Jackson turned back to Rachel, and this time his voice held something softer. Please come with me, he said. I want to make this right. She hesitated just a second, then nodded, slowly. Her steps were quiet but deliberate. The baby in the carrier stirred gently, like even the smallest child could sense a change in the energy around them. As they crossed the main showroom floor, a hush followed them. Phones stopped ringing, conversations paused mid-sentence, heads turned, but no one dared to speak. Chad didn't follow. He lingered in the finance room like a shadow that didn't know where to hide. Jackson didn't look back. As he passed the side window, he caught the eyes of Trevor, the lot attendant. The kid said nothing, but recognition flickered behind his gaze. Jackson gave a subtle nod. That was enough. In the conference room, Jackson pulled out a chair for Rachel, then took a seat across from her. Tom entered next and closed the door behind them. Chad followed, slower this time, as if each step cut deeper than the last. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed in a casual posture that didn't match the sweat streaking down his temple. Jackson reached for the clipboard Chad had left behind. Is this the quote you gave her? He asked without looking up. Chad squirmed. Yeah. Jackson flipped it open, scanning quickly. He picked up a pen and circled 3 fees. Explain these, he asked. Chad shrugged, defensive. I don't get why I'm being grilled here. Everybody includes those. It's standard. Do you have any documentation showing they're approved? Jackson asked, his tone even. Chad hesitated. It's in the system. No, it's not, Jackson said firmly now. I helped redesign that system. VIN etching was discontinued in 2021. Protection plans are for the powertrain only, not full electronics. You added over $2,000 0 cents worth of junk to a deal that was already closed. And you did it because you assumed no one would notice. Rachel said nothing, but her fingers trembled slightly on the carrier's strap. Her eyes didn't blink. She didn't breathe. She just stared at the paper like it was evidence of betrayal. Jackson continued. You told her the monthly payment would be $349 0 cents, but that's only true if she puts down $2,000 0 cents. And even then, the interest rate you quoted is inflated by 2.5 points. He leaned forward slightly. That's not a mistake. That's a scam. Chad stepped away from the wall. I hit my targets. Customers leave satisfied. I know how to sell. No, Jackson replied, leaning forward. You know how to pressure. That's two different things. Tom finally spoke up. Jackson. Mr. Reeves. I truly didn't know any of this, I swear. We were busy. The numbers looked good. It's the problem. Jackson cut in. You looked at numbers. I look at people. Rachel rose slowly, her face flushed, not with shame, but with righteous anger, a quiet fury that didn't need yelling to feel heavy. I thought this place was trustworthy, she said, her voice almost to herself, not directed at anyone in particular. It should have been, Jackson replied gently, and I'm sorry it wasn't. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a business card and slid it toward her. This is my direct line, he said. I'll personally make sure you pay a fair price, no junk fees. If you still want the car, you'll have it, and fairly. Rachel stared at the card, then took it slowly, as if afraid it might disappear if she blinked. Thank you, she said softly. And someone else will handle the paperwork, Jackson added. Someone who doesn't make up numbers. Chad shrugged contemptuously. You're serious? Clear out your desk, Jackson said, standing. Maybe wait, Chad began. No negotiation, Jackson commanded. You knew what was right, you just didn't care. Chad said nothing. He walked out, muttering under his breath. Ignored by everyone. Jackson turned to Tom. We're not done. In my office in 10 minutes. He led Rachel back across the showroom. The buzz of conversation stopped again. Some employees turned away. Some didn't bother pretending. At the front desk, Jackson paused. Did you greet her when she walked in? He asked the receptionist. She blinked. I don't remember. Jackson nodded. Start remembering or start looking for another job. But he knew firing one person wouldn't fix the culture. This was bigger. It was the culture, the atmosphere, those quiet choices made every day when no one was watching. Later, Jackson sat alone in Tom's office. The windows were open, revealing the showroom floor below. The sounds returned, phones ringing, footsteps, the quiet hum of computers. But the room felt strangely expectant, like everyone outside was holding their breath. Behind him, the door opened quietly. Tom entered slowly, his steps measured, as though he'd been asleep at the wheel and was just now waking up. He sat down without waiting for an invitation. I didn't know, he said softly. Almost a confession. I swear to you, Jackson, I had no idea Brent, I mean Chad, was doing something like this. Jackson didn't respond right away. He looked at the floor, then out the window. But you knew something, he said finally. You knew complaints were rising. You knew deals were getting murkier. You knew customer satisfaction dropped last quarter, and you blamed it on the survey systems. Tom was silent. No excuse could rescue him. Jackson leaned forward, elbows on the desk, eyes fixed on Tom. What happened to everything we built here? Tom pressed a hand to his temple, shaken. I thought things were okay. Sales were good, turnover low. I thought maybe the industry changed. The industry didn't change, Jackson said firmly. We did. We stopped listening. We stopped caring. We stopped treating customers like real people. Tom exhaled heavily. So, what do we do now? Jackson stood up calmly. Now we clean house, he said, not by firing one person. I want every deal from the past 90 days reviewed, each one. Refund everything that wasn't clearly disclosed, and I want one-on-one meetings with every salesperson. I want to know how they were trained, what they were told to prioritize, and who thought lying could ever be part of the job. Tom nodded slowly. And one more thing, Jackson said, turning for the door. I want Trevor in my office next week. Tom blinked. The lot attendant? Yes, Jackson replied. He's one of the only ones who looked a customer in the eye today. That matters. 3 days later, Jackson returned. No hoodie, no sneakers, no disguise. He walked in through the front doors of Reeves Auto Group wearing a tailored navy suit and polished leather shoes. Not to showboat, but to underscore accountability. All staff had been notified. A company waste meeting was scheduled. No vehicle sales would occur before 11 o'clock. IM incoming calls were redirected to voicemail. The meeting room was packed, from full-timers to part-timers, rookies to long-time employees. Jackson stood at the front. No microphone, no lectern, just his name and his conviction. I started this business in 2004, he began. No investors, no franchise backing, just an old lot behind a BBQ joint in Murfreesboro. The first week, I sold 3 cars and washed each one with my own hands. A few people chuckled softly. Jackson didn't smile. His voice remained rock solid. I didn't know if I'd make it, but I had 2 things, my name and my promise. I never promised what I couldn't deliver. I never looked someone in the eye and lied just to close the deal. A hush fell over the room, not out of fear, but awakening. At some point we forgot that, he continued. Not everyone, but enough to tarnish the name we built. We let small things slide, let pressure overtake patience, started treating customers as numbers instead of human beings. He paused, scanning the room. If any of you ever added a fee just because you thought nobody would notice, or rushed someone out the door because you thought they couldn't pay, or talked down to someone for asking too many questions? A few people shifted uncomfortably, a few heads bobbed. Then a voice from the back spoke up. What if some of us did things right but nobody noticed? It was Trevor's voice, shaky but clear. Jackson turned to him. Then, starting today, we begin to notice. He stepped forward and handed Trevor a small envelope. Inside was a promotion letter, from lot attendant to junior sales associate, complete with training and full benefits. Trevor blinked, almost in disbelief. You're serious? As serious as a heart attack, Jackson said. Because the people who treat others with respect, those are the people I want representing my name. There was no applause. It didn't need one. That silence held more meaning. It was the beginning of something new. After the meeting, changes came fast. Chad's deals were pulled. 5 required full or partial refunds. Rachel's case became a training example for the next week. Every manager was enrolled in a 3-week ethics and customer care workshop. Then Jackson brought someone back. Someone few saw coming. Helen Briggs, former front desk manager who left 2 years ago saying the place wasn't the same. She returned as head of customer relations. Her first move, install a glass partition between the sales floor and finance office. No more whispered deals behind closed doors. That Friday, Jackson stood among the certified pre-owned sedans and watched. The energy was different, not perfect, but lighter, more deliberate. not driven by fear but by awareness. He saw a young salesperson kneel beside a senior customer, calmly explaining trim options. No rush, no showmanship. It was something no spreadsheet could measure, but Jackson knew it mattered more than any monthly quota. Helen came to stand beside him. "Looks like they remember who they're working for now," she said softly. Jackson nodded. "They better, because I'm not going anywhere." One puzzle piece remained, the reason it all mattered. Sunday morning, Jackson sat on the porch of his childhood home in Jackson, Tennessee. The sun was just easing above the trees. A breeze carried the scent of dew. Jackson closed his eyes, thinking about the first promise he ever made, the first sign he ever had his name on. And he realized this time it wasn't just about fixing systems, it was about fixing hearts. Trevor was the first one to do it every morning, and Rachel, she returned a month later for her first service visit. Still in her simple hoodie, her daughter now a bit older, her eyes bright, peacefully napping in the carrier. Trevor stood behind the service desk. When he saw her, he smiled. "Do you remember me?" Rachel asked, half in jest, half sincere. "Of course," Trevor replied. "That silver Corolla, right? How's she running?" "Running great," she nodded. They chatted for a few minutes. Nothing grand, just small, everyday conversation. But it wasn't forced. It felt natural, warm. Jackson watched quietly from his upstairs office, unseen. Because this moment, it wasn't about him. It wasn't about the plaque, it wasn't about the apology speech, it wasn't about the refunds, it was about this moment. It was about someone being treated with the respect they deserve, not because policy demands it, but because it's right. You don't build a great business on sales quotas, targets, or promotional campaigns. You build it on trust, on how you treat people, especially when you think no one is looking. Jackson learned that from his mother, and he reminded others of it, through Rachel, through Trevor, through Brent's downfall, through every customer that walked through the doors. From that moment on, he didn't need applause. He wasn't looking for redemption stories or glossy headlines about leadership rebirth or corporate transformation. He simply wanted to walk the showroom floor, knowing no one was lying behind his back while smiling at him. He wanted just one thing. When a woman asks, "Why wasn't this fee on the contract yesterday?" the answer she gets is the truth. No excuses, no pressure, no passing blame. Because in the end, trust isn't built by policy, it's built by attitude, by culture, by the way a room feels when a customer enters hopeful and exits disappointed. He once built something not with marketing or tricks, but with sweat, kindness, and a belief that dignity still holds value. But that faded, not in a single moment, but gradually. When we stay silent, when we let things slide, when numbers become more important than names. Decay doesn't happen with a crash. It grows quietly when no one pays attention, when no one bothers to stop it. That morning, Jackson didn't come to fix a broken system. He discovered it. Because someone who once held the company's books walked in, not as an employee but as a customer, and the system had treated her like she didn't matter. But she did. She still remembered how numbers were supposed to add up, and when they didn't, she didn't need to shout to prove she was right. She just needed someone to listen. Trevor reminded him too, not with speeches or perfect scripts, but with a glass of water offered to a stranger. Eye contact made with care, honest explanations even when they weren't required. People think leadership is loud. Most of the time, it's silence. It's staying a little longer. It's asking again after everyone else has stopped caring. It's saying, "We can do better," even when no one claps. That is real soul, not a slogan on a window, not a training module, not some sales target to chase. It's how you treat someone who seems insignificant. It's what you protect when you believe no one will ever find out. Now Jackson understands that more than ever. Trust can't be rebuilt with apologies, only with actions. One decision at a time, one person at a time, one honest moment at a time. He lifted his head from his desk and looked out. He saw Trevor patiently guiding a customer through a lease agreement. Detailed, unhurried, genuine. He saw Rachel in the waiting area, her daughter now asleep in the carrier, a book lying open in her lap. He saw Helen standing by the glass wall, arms crossed, watching the floor, like she'd never really left it. This company would never be what it used to be. And that was the point, because not every downfall is a failure. Sometimes, the lowest point is the clearest place to rebuild something real,